and welcome. Yes, 322, class number 322. Are you ready? In spite of, yes, it's raining outside. It's raining. But I need to go to the pharmacy. I don't have an umbrella. The pharmacy is across the street. The pharmacy is on the other side of the street. But I need to go. I don't have an umbrella. Marta doesn't have an umbrella. Nobody here has an umbrella. But I have to go to the pharmacy. So when I finish this class, in about 25 minutes, I'm planning to go to the pharmacy. And I'm going to go even if it's raining cats and dogs. Even if it's pouring down rain, I'm going to go. Incluso si llueva cántaros. I'm going to go even if it's raining. I don't know if it's raining now, right now. But I don't know if it will be raining in 30 minutes. But if it's raining in spite of the rain, I will go. A pesar de la lluvia. I'll go to the pharmacy in spite of. Tres palabras. In spite of. La palabra spite, escrito spite, significa despecho. O sea, spite. Lo hizo por puro despecho. He did it because of spite. Entonces, a pesar de, en literalmente en esencia, es una traducción de a despecho de. Aquí se dice a pesar del concepto de pesar, de peso, de pesadumbre, pesar. Pero en inglés es despecho. And the expression a despecho de exists in Spanish, but people don't use it. If you go back to Galdós or to Clarín, you can see a despecho de, for in spite of. So in spite of, a pesar de la lluvia voy a ir. In spite of the rain, in spite of three words, in spite of the rain, I'm going to go to the pharmacy. Alternativa, despite. One word, not three. In spite of, despite. It means the same. Despite the rain, I'm going to go to the pharmacy. Despite the rain. Aquí rain es un sustantivo. A pesar de la lluvia. Pese a la lluvia. You have two in Spanish too, eh? Despite the rain, in spite of the rain. Which is more common? I would say, yo diría, I would say in spite of 60%, despite 40%. But I don't know. It doesn't matter. Both mean exactly the same thing, and both are used every day. In spite of the rain, I'm going to go. Ahora bien, I repeat. Rain, in this case, is a noun, sustantivo, a pesar de la lluvia. Ahora, si pongo un verbo, a pesar de que está lloviendo, pero voy a salir. Y a pesar de que esté lloviendo, in that case I say, in spite of the fact that it's raining. Long, eh? In spite of the fact that it's raining. Raining, 9 sílabas, 8 palabras. Cada todo monosílaba. In spite of the fact that it's raining, I'm going to cross the street to the pharmacy without an umbrella. I'm going to get wet. In spite of the fact that it's raining. Despite the fact that it's raining, I'm going to go to the pharmacy. Because I have no choice. I have no choice. I have no choice. No hay más remedio. No tengo otra elección. Se dice así, I have no. Igual que no tengo ni ideas, I have no idea. No idea. I have no choice. I have no choice. I have to go. So I'm going to go in spite of the fact that it's raining. I'm going to go despite the fact that it's raining. I'm going to go even though. Aquí decimos even though y no although. Even though it's raining cats and dogs. gatos y perros, se dice en inglés. Even though it's raining cats and dogs, even though, in spite of the fact that it's raining, y el that es obligatorio aquí. In spite of the fact that it's raining, I'm going to go to the pharmacy. So, I'm going to go in spite of the rain. Ahora vuelvo a un sustantivo, la lluvia. I'm going to go in spite of the rain. I'm going to go despite the rain. Yes. You know, today is not my day. I have a headache. I have a headache. I have a sore throat. It hurts to swallow. I have a backache. Yes, I have a backache. Yes. And I don't feel good today. When I got up this morning, I said, oh no, I feel terrible. But I have to do television with Marta. So I'm here. It's a question of responsibility. I'm here giving you this class in spite of the fact that I feel terrible. I'm here with Marta and with you despite the fact that I feel awful, terrible, horrible, awful, under the weather, debajo del tiempo atmosférico, under the weather. Yeah, sí, sí. Cuando estás pachucho, dices, oh, me siento un poco pachucho. I feel a little under the weather, bajo mínimos. All right, so I'm here teaching you in spite of the fact that I don't feel very well. I'm here with you and Marta in front of the camera with the lights and the makeup, despite the fact that I feel awful. I'm here in front of you teaching English, even though I don't feel very well. Yeah. But when I got here this morning, well, I got here about 20 minutes ago. I said, good morning, Marta. I said, I feel awful today. And she said, pues, vamos a hacerlo mañana. I said, no, today. And Marta said, I have some good news. Marta dijo, tengo buenas nuevas, albricias, buenas nuevas. Good news, yes. And she said, I sharpened your pencil. Okay, it's not completely sharp, but it's okay. So Marta finally got around to sharpening this pencil. Fíjate cómo lo acaba de decir. She finally sharpened, finalmente ha sacado punta. She finally sharpened the pencil. Pero lo dije al principio de otra manera. She finally got around to sharpening the pencil. Which means, por fin, encontró el momento para hacerlo. She finally got around to sharpening the pencil. Thank you, Marta. Now I have 20 sharp pencils and not just 19. And so that put me in a good mood. So I'm here, even though I feel bad. I'm here in spite of the fact that this morning when I got up, I felt awful. In spite of the fact. So we have that. In spite of the fact that, in spite of the fact, well, teaching English, I'm past my retirement age. Ya estoy pasado de fecha, as you say. I'm past my retirement age. But I have continued teaching in spite of that. A pesar de eso. In spite of that. In spite of the fact that I have passed my retirement age, I continue teaching. And I'm not receiving a retirement pension yet. I made the decision. In spite of the fact that I could retire, I have decided not to retire and to continue working, because working is more fun than not working in my job. Teaching is fun, even though I have a headache. It's not true, by the way. I don't have a headache today. I slept fine. I feel fine. All right. But even though I could start aunque pudiera empezar a percibir una pensión, even though I could start receiving, no decimos percibir para recibir, like in Spanish, even though I could start receiving a pension, even though I have decided to continue teaching, in spite of the fact that I could, if I wanted, to receive a pension, I've decided to continue teaching, despite the fact. All right. Point 820. Now, 2821, page 313. Instead of, en vez de ir a la playa, hemos decidido ir a la montaña. Instead of going. Instead of. Ahora, enlacemos fonéticamente. Instead of going to the beach, we have made a decision, and our decision is to go to the mountains. Instead of going to the beach. Rather than going to the beach. Es lo mismo. Rather than, instead of. Es lo que se enseña aquí. Rather than going to the beach, we've decided to go to the mountains. Yes. Instead of using initially, my idea was to use pens. But finally, Marta said, no, instead of using pens, use pencils. And I said, why? And she said, well, there are two reasons. Number one, it's difficult to find pens of so many different colors. Second, pencils are less expensive than pens. Oh. And so, initially, if you remember in class number 1, a year and 2 months ago, I was saying a pen. I was using a pen. Is this a pen? Yes, it is. Is this a book? Yes, it is. But then I said, okay, Marta, I need 20 pens. And Marta said, oh, hey, instead of pens, rather than pens, let's use pencils. And she said, instead of pens, let's use pencils. So, instead of using pens, we decided, thanks to Marta, we decided to use pencils. Instead of rather than, fíjate la pronunciación, rather, la TH vibrada en medio, rather, Badajoz, bada, esa D en medio, hada, madrina, rather. Ese es el mismo sonido fonético, físicamente hecho, rather. Rather than, o sea, dos veces la TH vibrada. Rather than, Zaragoza, Zarzuela. Rather than. Now, rather, sin a than, means algo, o un tanto. Me explico. Estoy algo cansado hoy. Muy cansado no, pero algo. I'm rather tired. Estoy un tanto cansado hoy. Sí. I'm rather tired. Marta tiene un acento sevillano. Y su hijo pequeñín tiene un acento un tanto sevillano también. And her son, he's only 3 years old, has a rather civilian accent too. Completely like Marta? No. It's just un acentazo. But the little one, no. Not yet. Yeah, not yet. I'm sure Marta's going to indoctrinate him with a good Sevillano accent, a civilian accent. But he has a rather. Okay, rather. Ahora bien, pero aquí rather than is en vez de, en lugar de. En lugar de esta cámara, casi prefiero usar esa. Rather than that camera, me, I almost prefer that one. We have tried both. Marta prefers this camera. I prefer that one. So, and I said to Marta, hey Marta, look, for class number 301 to class 400, rather than using the same camera, let's use that one, huh? Rather than using this one, why don't we use that one? Instead of using, fíjate el gerundio, claro, rather than, instead of es preposición. Pero en ambos casos gerundio, ing. Rather than using this camera, why don't we try? ¿Por qué no probamos? Why don't we try that one, huh? Instead of using this camera, why don't we use that one? And at the beginning, a year and 2 months ago, I said, rather than using a small microphone, why don't we use a big one like this? Hello, hello, like this one. And Marta said, no. The little microphone. All right. Instead of, rather than, instead of. Instead of this, I prefer this. Instead of using this, I prefer to use this. Yes. All right. Negative questions, point 22. Yes. This table isn't black. Why isn't it black? It's not black because it's white. I don't like green peppers. Pimientos verdes. Oh? And Richard, why don't you like green peppers? Why don't you? Fíjate, don't you. ¿Por qué no te gusta? Why don't you like? Don't you. Hermano menor de Carmenchu, ¿te acuerdas? Don't you. Didn't you. Haven't you. Can't you. Couldn't you. These are all, it's a big family. Los chus. Carmenchu, don't you. Why don't you like green peppers? I didn't go to the States. Every year I go to the States, to the U.S., to the United States. But I didn't go last year. I didn't go to the States last year. No. Why didn't you go? Why didn't you go? Preguntas negativas. Why didn't you? Didn't you? Pero enlazamos con un sonido de che. Why didn't you go? Because of the pandemic. Because of. Debido a la pandemia. Due to. Because of. Due to the pandemic. Pero si dice más, because of. Because of you, my romance. Because of. Por ti. Debido a ti. Por culpa tuya. Because of you. Because of the COVID-19, I didn't go. Why didn't you go? I told you, because of the pandemic. All right. I've never been to Sweden. You, Richard? You've traveled everywhere. Yes and no. I've traveled to many countries, but I've never been to Sweden. And why haven't you? Why haven't you ever been to Sweden? I don't know. Coincidence. I've never been to Sweden. Maybe next year. Who knows? And I can't speak perfect French. Richard, you're a linguist. Why can't you? Otro hermanito. Why can't you? Menchu, Carmenchu, don't you, didn't you, haven't you, can't you? Why can't you speak perfect French? Because I don't live in a French-speaking country and I don't need French for my job. I can get by, but I can get by as puedo salir el paso con mi francés. I can get by with my French, but I can't speak perfect French. Yes. John Kennedy wasn't the greatest president in American history. No? Why wasn't he the greatest? Well, because I consider George Washington the greatest. So in my opinion, John Kennedy wasn't the greatest. I didn't have, or there weren't, any pencils in that cup, in this cup. There were, if you remember, if you go back on RTV a la carta, and you go back to class number 1, you'll see the cup, but there's water in the cup. I think I remember, Marta, taking a drink. Do you remember? Yeah? There was water in the cup. There isn't any water in the cup now. But there weren't any pencils in the cup during the first 5 or 10 classes. And why not? Why weren't there? Pregunta negativa. ¿Por qué no hubo? O ¿por qué no había lápices? Why weren't there? Like that, Marta? Like that? Or like this? Like this? Or like that? No? Like this. She prefers it like this, not like this. Digo this si estoy tocando, sino that, like that. Like that? All right. Why weren't there any pencils in the cup in the first 10 classes? Because I didn't need the pencils in the first 10 classes. And God didn't work on the 7th day. During the creation, he worked the first 6 days, but he didn't work on the 7th day. No? Why didn't God work on the 7th day? Why didn't he work? Why didn't he work on the 7th day? Because he needed to take a rest. Like you, like me, we all need to rest. Yes. And Abel didn't kill Cain. Abel didn't kill Cain, no. Abel no mató a su hermano Caín. Abel didn't kill Cain. Why didn't Abel kill Cain? Well, Abel didn't kill Cain because Cain killed Abel. Oh, that's right. Yeah, Cain killed Abel. Yes. Cain killed Abel because he envied his brother. Envidiaba. He envied his brother. Why did Cain envy his brother? Well, he envied his brother because God accepted Abel's offerings, sus ofrendas. God accepted Abel's offerings, but God didn't accept Cain's offerings. No? Why didn't God accept Cain's offerings? Why didn't God accept? Why didn't he accept Cain's offerings? Because Cain's offerings were not made with a sincere heart. Corazón sincero. Fíjate en la pronunciación de sincero. Sincere. So, God didn't. Why didn't God accept? Why didn't God accept? Why didn't he accept Cain's offerings? Because Cain's offerings weren't with a sincere heart. And why didn't Cain make offerings to God with a sincere heart? I don't know. Maybe because he was paying too much attention to Abel. And he was trying to win, trying to gain God's favor, greater favor than Abel. Who knows? I don't know. And later, God chose Noah to continue the human race. You remember that God was unhappy with his work. God created the earth, etc., yeah. But after several generations, he wasn't happy with the result. Don't like this. It's not working right. And so he decided to go back and start again. Borrón y cuenta nueva. We say back to the drawing board. De vuelta a la tabla de dibujo, de delineación. Back to the drawing board. And so he chose one person, one family, Noé, el del arca. And why didn't he choose, why didn't God choose another person? Pregunta negativa. Why didn't he choose another family instead of Noah and his family? Why didn't God choose another family rather than Noah's family? Well, because I suppose God considered Noah the best person, the best candidate to survive the great flood. La gran inundación, se dice en inglés, el gran diluvio. The flood, F-L-O, como blood, sangre, pero con F, flood. Se pronuncia igual. Blood flood. And so he decided. So why didn't he choose another family? I don't know. I suppose that there wasn't another family as virtuous as Noah. As qué? As what? Virtuous. Virtuoso. No vir, virtuous. And why wasn't there another family as virtuous as Noah's? Don't ask me. I'm not an expert on the Bible. But apparently, al parecer, apparently there wasn't. And so God chose Noah. And God chose me to teach you English. But I'll continue tomorrow.